Wow, what a room. So good morning, and thank you for the invitation. I'm delighted to be here to speak about Canada's conventional oil and gas sector and the role it can play in helping to solve some of the world's biggest challenges. For background, the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, CAPP as it's called, defines itself as the trusted voice of Canada upstream oil and natural gas industry, working to ensure Canada is the preferred source of safe, reliable, responsibly produced, and affordable energy to meet the growing needs of the world in Canada. My organization represents oil and natural gas producers who are responsible for the production of about 80% of the supply here in Canada. I'd like to share a few facts with you, just in case you don't know much about our industry. Canada has the fourth largest oil supply in the world, behind the United States, Saudi Arabia, and Russia. Actually, our oil reserves are larger than Russia's. We are the sixth largest producer of natural gas in the world. And the upstream industry is one of the largest private investors in Canada's economy, with almost $300 billion of capital spending in the last decade. Through our operations and a supply chain network of more than 10,000 businesses across Canada, our industry supports about 450,000 workers across Canada, many of you in this room. Canada's energy industry is at a pivotal moment in its history. The global challenge of climate change, we've talked about that, and the need to drive down emissions is accelerating innovation in our energy systems on a scale that has not been seen since the Industrial Revolution. And in the midst of this challenge, the world was struck with COVID-19 pandemic, you all recall, resulting in an unprecedented shutdown of global economy. And as we started our societal and economic recovery last year, Russia invaded Ukraine, and that war continues. In the past 18 months, the rules of geopolitics have been rewritten, fracturing decade-old alliances while plunging the world into a full energy security crisis. These three calamities have created a global trilemma. How can we continue to drive down lower emissions? How do we continue to provide secure, reliable, affordable energy? And how do we grow our economies to ensure opportunities for today and for generations to come? At the center of this trilemma is energy. And the Canadian oil and natural gas sector has a significant part to play in the solution. Canada has vast energy supplies, as I was mentioning, along with the expertise and the commitment to develop oil and natural gas resources responsibly and sustainably. Today, there's a growing demand for Canadian energy because we are one of the few stable economic democracies that produce more energy than we consume. As a global leader in GHG emissions reduction through clean tech innovation, Canada has an opportunity to become the preferred global supplier of responsibly produced energy for decades to come. Canadian producers are amongst the country's largest investors in clean tech. We've invested billions of dollars in emissions reduction technologies, and as a result, we are global leaders in carbon capture and methane reductions. The goal for Canada to be a leader in attracting investments in responsible oil and natural gas production and in decarbonization projects is achievable because of our industry's leadership in both these spaces. And I should add, because of the solid workforce behind it to make it happen. While we can debate which energy forecasts are the most likely, what we do know, even in a net zero world, there will be far more oil and natural gas required than Canada alone can produce. And I'm referring here to latest International Energy Agency's data. So there's an opportunity today for Canada to grab and maintain global market share that can enable a thriving conventional oil and gas industry here in Canada for decades to come. Which brings me to the second part of the trilemma, energy security. Canadians have a relatively energy-secure existence. About 3/4 of conventional oil and natural gas produced here in Canada is used here. However, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the world has been forced to rethink energy, and Canada must as well. As our trading partners around the world move away from Russian energy supplies, Canada has an obligation to step up and grow our role as a provider of lower emissions, secure, reliable oil and natural gas. Currently, Canada provides or contributes 22% to the total oil production within NATO countries. We are a vital friend in the energy mix of our allies. In this context, Canada's oil and natural gas production becomes exceptionally important in ensuring energy security. And when Canada's oil and gas industry is given room to grow and thrive, it creates opportunity for all Canadians. It creates jobs, generates revenues for governments, and value for shareholders. Canada is poised to play a much larger role as a global energy supplier. The Trans Mountain Expansion Project, expected to be completed within a year, will add significant capacity to export conventional energy and conventional energies to global markets, ensuring Canadians are getting greater value for our resource base. We have an emerging liquefied natural gas export industry. This is an opportunity that rivals the size of the current oil sands industry in terms of economic impact and potential for jobs. And there are billions of dollars in investment preparing to be invested in clean tech projects, including carbon capture and storage and electrification of operations, which is a critical path to the decarbonization pathway for the conventional oil and natural gas sectors. This next era for Canada's oil and natural gas industry will be powered by people. We will need the support of hundreds of thousands of workers for decades to come. And I'm talking about sustainable jobs here, we've been talking about. So my ask to everyone in the room today is to lend your support to Canada's conventional oil and gas sector. Learn about the opportunity Canada has to become an energy superpower and the role we can play in lowering global emissions, providing critical energy supplies to our allies, and creating prosperity for Canadians. Then share that with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and your elected officials. Tell them that you want a thriving energy industry in Canada that includes the conventional oil and gas sector for decades to come. Working together is the only way that we can ensure Canada takes advantage of the great opportunities ahead. Thank you for listening.